But her mother, Regina Ventura, got on the witness stand today and was talking about how her daughter asked her for money for help because Diddy was threatening to expose her with these sex tapes of a freak off.
Diddy Combs really threatened Cassie's mother over her relationship with another rapper. Shocking new testimony reveals how a $20,000 demand and explicit video threats forced Regina Ventura into an impossible decision. What? Pushed a mother to risk her home to protect her daughter? This bombshell story will leave you stunned.
Today's cross-examination focusing heavily on Ventura's allegation that Combs raped her in 2018 after they had ended their relationship, which he denies. The defense showing text messages between the former couple the day after the alleged rape, including one in which Ventura sent a heart emoji to Combs. Combs' team also trying to poke holes in Ventura's timeline.
That is not the gotcha moment that defense attorneys think it is. I mean, at the end of the day, witnesses are not great on specific dates, particularly when they go back years ago.
The defense also pointing to a text exchange between Ventura and Combs from 2012, in which she wrote, "I don't want to freak off for the last time. I want it to be the first time for the rest of our lives." At times today, the defense appeared to struggle to maintain momentum, facing frequent objections by prosecutors and regularly stopping Ventura's questioning to whisper together. Combs appeared to be actively involved, passing his lawyers notes. In a striking exchange with Combs' lawyers, Ventura saying, despite it all, "I don't hate him. I have love for the past and what it was."
We also saw musician Dawn Richard take the stand. She said that she witnessed Combs be violent with Ventura over the course of their relationship. I just want to remind everyone that Combs denies all of the allegations against him. Back to you.
Diddy crossed a line that no one could have predicted. Diddy's patience reportedly broke when Cassie was at the height of her relationship with rapper Kid Cudi. At the time, Cassie was closely related to Diddy both personally and professionally, making her developing romance with Cudi a potential IR threat to their dynamic. The accusations suggest that Diddy discovered the relationship and wasn't about to keep quiet, and what followed was a sinister threat directed not only at Cassie, but also at her family. As stated by Regina Ventura, Diddy took things to a dark and personal level by allegedly claiming to have explicit videos of Cassie that could destroy her reputation. Imagine the weight of those words. Not only the potential for public humiliation, but also the devastating impact it could have on a young artist's career and future. What was even more sinister was that Diddy threatened to release these videos if his demands weren't met, and Regina testified that Diddy demanded $20,000 to do so. Wasn't just a threat to Cassie's reputation, it instilled fear in her mother's heart. This is an unthinkable situation. Regina, a woman who was neither famous nor involved in Hollywood's brutal power struggles, was thrown into a nightmare as a mother. All she wanted to do was keep her daughter safe, but required more than words of consolation or emotional support. It required something much more concrete, and the price was seemingly unaffordable. And here's the worst part. Diddy's demand was much more oppressive because Regina didn't have $20,000 on hand. The threat extended beyond her daughter's tranquility and affected her house, pocketbook, and sense of security. Regina must have been carrying a heavy emotional load for hours, or maybe days. Even more tragic is the fact that Diddy's demand compelled her to take action, which carried risks of its own, in order to satisfy the $20,000 demand. She probably reenacted the threat in her mind as she considered her options and wondered if there was any way out. This is where the story becomes even darker. Regina made the desperate decision to take out a home equity loan, which she couldn't afford to do, and that meant risking everything to keep her daughter safe. This wasn't just a financial decision, it was emotional warfare, and Regina had to make the impossible decision to let these threats linger. As difficult as it was, this was only the beginning because the lengths she went to rescue her daughter demonstrated how serious the stakes were. She had to choose between erasing her family's heads or taking a terrible step to do so.
Very surprised by that, but Regina Ventura spoke out about an email she received from Cassie in December 2011 that said Diddy threatened to release FO tapes of Cassie after he learned that she was dating Kid Cudi. Cudi? Cudi?
Cudi. You got
It is Cudi. Now I'm like, did I do it wrong? I constantly keep correcting myself. I was physically sick, Ventura said. I did not understand if the tape threw me. He was trying to hurt my daughter. Diddy had threatened to release one video on Christmas Day. Disgusting. She testified that Combs wanted $20,000 for the video. Ventura said Combs was angry. He had spent money on Cassie, and that she was with another person. My God. Meanwhile, he's out there with everybody in the world. We took a home equity loan, and that was the only way we could get the money. So she paid him? Oh, my God. Good thing she got this money from the settlements. Easy. Combs' bookkeeper sent Regina an email with wiring instructions. She said, this is key. Combs' bookkeeper taking the money bribe, the extortion claim. This is massive. I'm going to pause.
Who handled the finances of Mr. Diddy?
Rico Law. I need a Rico Law sample. We're finally getting there.
And the thing is, anybody who has been following along at home about this whole thing, this does potentially, we don't know, they were not named. I cannot say this, but there's been a lot of looking into TriStar Entertainment, Lou Taylor, and all of that, who has worked with Diddy for a very long time to do with his books. This is very interesting. And it does appear that they have the records of this, that this did happen. So that's great.
The fact that there's an email from Sean Combs' bookkeeper to buy the video, which basically is an extortion threat. I'm going to release this tape if you don't pay me. That's extortion, guys. And now a criminal enterprise because his employees are doing it. With wiring instructions, she said, so she went to the credit union and then wired the money from her and her husband's account to the bad boy account. Regina said she did it because she was scared about my daughter's safety. She said for about 4 or 5 days later, the money was returned to her account, but she did not have any communications with Combs about it. So he then gives the money back, I guess, realizing this was a big, stupid mistake. But you still did it, Diddy. Diddy did it. Not a good look, my man. She also spoke about photos she took of Cassie's injuries, which the jury saw. I'm not going to show you those guys because they look awful, but it's legit. Cassie's not a victim. Go eat shit. She also mentioned that an interaction with Mia, who I do think we're going to hear at some point, and an incident where Diddy stole Cassie's phone and she called the cops. The defense did not ask questions of Regina. That's wild. They're like, no questions.
Yeah.
We're not even
so
engaged.
I mean, how do you even cross-examine someone when it's like, I have proof that you extorted me. I sent you the money after your bookkeeper sent me an email saying how to do it. Then you sent it back. There's no debate that this happened. I have the receipts. Are you going to yell at me?
Most individuals would be unsure of what to do for Regina Ventura in the face of such a serious threat. She was facing a well-known music mogul with enormous power and the means to support his threats, so the stakes couldn't have been higher. However, she wasn't just a mother struggling with fear. She was also a woman caught off guard by a problem that was completely outside of her world. And worse, the clock was ticking away the price tag. The cost of doing nothing is $20,000. The safety of the daughter Regina didn't have $20,000 lying around in her bank account like most people do. But when a demand like this falls on your lap, you'll do all in your power to satisfy it. It was a weight, too, to ignore, affecting both her dignity and their peace of mind. She must have struggled for hours, or maybe days, with the thought of taking out a home equity loan because she was aware of the risks to her house and financial stability. In an attempt to save her daughter from a man who possessed far more riches and influence than she could ever imagine, the cornerstone of her family's future, a roof over their heads, was going to be used as leverage. Imagine being in a bank, pen in hand, preparing to sign documents that will put you in debt, not because you made a poor decision or fell on hard times, but because someone gave you no other choice. Regina was giving over more than just money. She was giving up a piece of her own stability, her freedom and safety net. Even though she knew she was being manipulated, it's difficult not to consider how Diddy's alleged actions took away her control and left her feeling helpless. She probably relieved those threats in her mind, detesting every aspect of what she was being forced to do, but knowing that signing those loan documents was her only option must have been an emotional struggle, a moment filled with desperation, anger, and resolve. And this is where her actions show so much about the kind of person she is. Instead of crumbling under the weight of this impossible situation, Regina took on the financial risk, the stress, and the fear because her maternal instincts told her she had no other option. She put Cassie's safety above everything, including security, and she decided to fight back in the only way she could think of at the time, cutting that $20,000 check while probably fighting back tears. It wasn't just about money. It was a sacrifice that left Regina and her family with scars that no amount of money could ever fully capture. Nevertheless, her sacrifice demonstrated the depth of her love for her daughter, and while Regina's act of desperation speaks for itself, Cassie's thoughts about her mother's choice add yet another level to this developing tale.
Very interesting. It was a little bit of a surprise because everybody's still talking about Cassie's testimony from last week, but her mother, Regina Ventura, got on the witness stand today and was talking about how her daughter asked her for money for help because Diddy was threatening to expose her with these sex tapes of a freak off. And so Regina Ventura, the mother, what she did was she got a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, on her home for $20,000 and gave that $20,000 to Diddy to try to keep him from releasing that video, that very disturbing video, I'm sure, of her daughter.
And we also heard from Cassie's mother, who testified about a payment that she wired to Diddy after Cassie told her that he was threatening to release 2 sex tapes. Cassie's mom said Diddy asked her for money around that same time to, quote, recoup money that he had spent on her daughter. The prosecutor asked, quote, why did you go to the bank and take out a $20,000 loan? Cassie's mom said, I was scared for my daughter's safety. She was asked what she needed $20,000 for, and she said, to pay Sean Combs. And when she was asked why she needed to pay Sean Combs, she testified, because he demanded it.
And I think that was something that was just, nobody expected that, because people were like, wait a minute, she gave him $20,000? And the reason for it was all because she had cheated on him, and he wanted his money that he claimed he had invested in her from, feeding her, paying her rent, and all of these types of things. That was the number that he came up with. So that was pretty cruel.
The mom was fearing that he was going to release these sex tapes.
Yes, and that's her daughter. And, she was aware, obviously, of the situation. So there's questions about that. But it's just, when it's a mother, a parent's going to do anything for their kid.
Yeah, and I think she didn't get cross-examined either, right? So she just did her testimony and she was out.
And that was
she was
it.
on very short time.
Exactly.
On the stand.
In 2011, Cassie was caught up in a situation that would have been too much for anyone, much less a young artist just starting out in her career. Her relationship with Kid Cudi was intensifying at the time, but behind the scenes, it was purportedly creating a great deal of conflict with Diddy, who was signed to Bad Boy Records. According to reports, that professional relationship came with a degree of control that permeated her personal life. Diddy wasn't just a significant player in the music industry. His influence could make or break a career. When her romance Kid Cudi allegedly crossed a boundary with him, it's impossible to overlook the emotional strain Cassie must have been under as her world started to fall apart. Knowing that your mother had to risk her own financial future to keep you safe is a difficult weight for anybody to bear. And in this instance, it wasn't only a personal family matter. There were layers to it, including career risks, public humiliation, and a profoundly unsettling power dynamic with someone she depended on for her job. Imagine being in her position, torn between a mother who is giving her all for you and a powerful person like Diddy, who is allegedly holding all the power. The cards. It's understandable why Cassie refrained from speaking out in public during that period of her life. She was changing from a rising star to a more well-known figure in the music industry, and songs like Me You had already made her famous and drawn attention to her beyond only her music, but also for her personality and style. But this controversy had the potential to undo her progress. If the purported videos had been made public, the consequences could have been disastrous for her reputation, as well as her capacity to continue developing as an artist. It's important to note that the music business is infamously harsh, particularly when it comes to women. Cassie would have been acutely aware that even if it wasn't her fault, one mistake could permanently stigmatize her. However, what's most remarkable about this is Cassie's silence. Despite everything that allegedly happened, she kept her head down and remained silent, at least in the public eye. She has never been one to publicly discuss her personal difficulties, and this purported crisis was handled in no different way. It's difficult to say for sure, but it needed resilience to bear everything without snapping or losing control. Was this quite a means of self-preservation, or a strategy to keep control? When her situation felt so out of her control, Cassie's silence in the face of public humiliation also illustrates how deeply ingrained the power dynamics were. Daisy's alleged actions extended beyond her personal life to her professional life, where speaking up could have cost her everything. In this way, her silence may not have been submission, but rather have been tactics, and it's difficult to avoid relating what she went through to the more significant allegations that have been made about Diddy over the years. This episode might have been a part of a concerning pattern, but it wasn't simply personal.
Just go to this male escort, the Punisher, as he's known. So he was the second to last witness to testify today. Interesting what he was talking about when he said he first encountered them. He didn't really know that this was Diddy. He didn't know who Cassie Ventura was. But then all of a sudden he was all in after a little bit.
All in, Richard, and he was all in, and he was also really in some ways it seemed helping the defense, because he was talking about how much Cassie enjoyed the sex, that it seemed consensual to him. He even used the word, she gave me her consent. And then the prosecutor was like, how do you know that? And he said because of the way that she was moving, when they were intimate. But there was a lot to him, because he said he was in the business as a male entertainer, a stripper, for about 30 years, almost 30 years, and that also a sex worker. He didn't say that, but they would do private sessions like that. He said most of the times he was with Cassie. He didn't see Diddy or her inebriated or kind of like too high. He wasn't offered drugs. He said he was offered a drink, and he saw what he thought was marijuana there. But Richard, the real thing about him that was so fascinating was the longer that he talked, he was under cross-examination by Xavier Donaldson, one of the attorneys on Diddy's team, and he started to ask him about this, what's your business like? What are you doing, as a male entertainer? And he said mostly it's like bachelorette parties, we'll go and do things just to, super flirt. I'm going to keep it PG with the grandmothers and the mothers there, and the mother of the bride or whatever, to make it a fun evening. But he said some shocking things. He said he had about 8 to 15 encounters with Cassie and Diddy, having sex with Cassie, and that most of it, except for the last two times, was unprotected. There was no protection. So that was pretty interesting.
Is this just one shock?
This isn't the first time Sean Diddy Combs has been accused of being a man who thrives on control and uses his power as a weapon. If you've followed his career closely, you'll know that his name has appeared numerous times in stories that hint at a darker reality behind the glitzy public image for years. Is Regina Ventura's testimony part of a larger, more concerning pattern? Diddy's alleged mistreatment of women has caused a stir in the business. These claims frequently follow a pattern of power abuse and control, especially against weaker members of society. Kim Porter, the late mother of Diddy's 3 children, is one name that is commonly linked to these trends. Although Porter is no longer with us to speak her truth, intimate associates of Porter have alluded to a turbulent. Several reports stated that Diddy had considerable influence over her life, with sources claiming he meddled in her personal and professional choices. Although she kept quiet about the details, these reports leave many wondering what was left unsaid. Additionally, there is the case of Misa Hilton Brim, another woman who was connected to Diddy in his early years in the industry, and she has occasionally alluded to the power their relationships imbalance. While her remarks are ambiguous, they add to the picture of a man who, by some accounts, maintains dominance in every aspect of his relationships, both personal and professional, and how it was to find stability in a dynamic that was so heavily skewed in his favor. However, women are not the only ones who believe Diddy's influence comes with conditions. Even collaborators and music industry employees have several artists, like The Lox and Faith Evans, have spoken out about feeling trapped by Diddy's contracts and financial decisions, which may at first glance appear like typical industry disagreements. These artists are former Bad Boy Records colleagues who have told stories of his iron grasp. His purported concern with control is seriously called into doubt given the frequency of these accusations. Regina Venture's account of, but adds a more personal and terrifying dimension to this pattern than ever before. It's not just about negotiating contracts or using power to influence an artist's career. It's about threatening a family, demanding money, and using private, intimate material as a weapon. It reveals yet another painful layer in a story that is filled with repeated allegations of alleged exploitation. And while Diddy has established a reputation as one of the most powerful figures in the entertainment industry, cases like this make people reevaluate the steps he took to get there. Industry insiders frequently note that power dynamics like these are pervasive in the music industry, and that the disparity between a young artist or an outsider like Regina Ventura and a man like Diddy, who has almost limitless resources and contacts, fosters coercion. How many more, I wonder? Stories like this are kept quiet because victims are afraid to speak up. Regina's willingness to share her testimony lends credibility to this troubling discussion by demonstrating the guts required to confront someone with such vast power. What takes place could indicate whether these claims lead to more significant consequences for Diddy and the industry overall. Entire interview.
There was some criticism of that raid, particularly from extended members of the Combs family, about why did they need that big show of force? Why did they need, as he testified, as Agent Gannon, Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent Gannon, who's one of the leaders of this whole special group that they have.
Right.
He said that they had 80 to 95 law enforcement descend on that compound in March of 2024, and he said,
that day.
"Yeah, you can't. Nobody can
Right.
forget it." And he said the reason was because they had, their intel basically had let them know there was security there, there was armed security there. It was a very complex, They have of course, they have the blueprint and the schematics of the property, but he said they wanted to make sure that there was no danger to anybody, so they timed the raid. This was interesting. He testified they had a search warrant, but the search warrant, Richard, was. Oh, are you okay?
Yes.
Okay. We're on the streets. What can
Yeah, we're on the
and we're
the
live.
edge.
And we're live. That's why I have my sneakers on.
That'll go
You
viral.
got the fancy. You got the fancy.
I have my
shoes.
shoes. I should put sneakers.
You got your fancy shoes. Anyway, he so he was basically talking about the Homeland Security, the investigations, what they were doing. He said that usually they do these raids at about 6:00 in the morning. They did this one at 3:40 in the afternoon that day because he said they wanted to make sure that most of the people in the compound were out of there at the time that they went in. I thought that was interesting. And what they found, Richard, I mean, well, they show the closet, and there's a closet. First of all, the property is gorgeous. It's I've been to Star Island, not there, but been to Star Island, and it's spectacular. It's just like one of those amazing places. So you go, they open the door. The evidence photo shows this closet in one of the rooms. There's shelves on it, so I'm like looking at it, and I'm like going, what is this, like Sean John T-shirts or package of what is this? And he describes what's in there. He describes high heels, 7-inch high platform high heels, like dozens and dozens of them.
Yeah.
He describes lingerie, like freak off essentials, and then he says there were also assembly parts for guns. And so under questioning about the parts, he says, this is the upper receiver, this is the lower receiver. These are for AR-15 semi-automatic rifles. There were bullets that were there was ammunition, and then as the agent testified, that it's very simple to put it together. You put the two upper with the lower, there's a pin that you insert, and then you insert the magazine or pop the clip in, and then it's ready to go. So there was a lot of concern about that. People were kind of gasping, honestly, when they heard that. But the number of things, and then of course there was baby oil they found, there was lubricant, all of these items from the freak off that we
Diddy's legal team is overburdened. Former top federal prosecutor Mark Agnello, his lead counsel, is skilled at sowing doubt about their claim that it wasn't sex. Trafficking was a poisonous, dysfunctional relationship characterized by drug abuse, emotional collapses, and bad decisions. But not illegal activity, and oddly, some of the prosecution's own witnesses, such as the Punisher, might have genuinely supported that claim, and the jury has been perceptive, focused, and involved. Judge Aaron Subramanian has done something out of the ordinary, cut lunches short, maintained a strict schedule, and even served breakfast every day to keep things going smoothly. It's a minor issue, but in situations like this, every second counts. Therefore, it's critical to keep in mind that we're still. The defense hasn't even played its hand yet, but the prosecution has already made its initial moves in this case. What we've heard thus far might not fully capture what occurs when the defense summons its witnesses. What would happen if what happens if more troubling material or additional witnesses surface in the days ahead? Diddy himself takes the stand. This isn't just about one individual. It's about a sector of the economy where victims may be silenced by power and where celebrities can conceal abuse.
Yeah, and I think everybody appreciates. There's still a sense of, at this point in the trial, of mutual respect on both sides. Because remember, Diddy's lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, he's a former prosecutor and one of the top prosecutors in this very district, in the Southern District here of New York. So he's very familiar with how the courts operate. Diddy's defense team, they're trying to do as much as they can. They did score points, though. The witness, that the male sex worker, was Shay McCrae, Hayes, or whatever.
Sheree Hayes.
Sheree Hayes, thank you.
go.
I'm close. Yeah. He was basically talking about how Cassie seemed to be enjoying the sex with him on a professional level, and that really doesn't.
Does that really help?
Yeah,
and
I think the thing we have to remember, a couple things. I think we have to remember that, everybody is innocent until they're proven guilty, because there's been such an unprecedented barrage of publicity about this case and Diddy, and the most salacious things are the things that are the biggest headlines. And I don't want us to miss the building up of the case, of what they have to prove, step by step. And I think that's the whole thing, is like, it's not about whether, what your idea or anybody's idea of sex trafficking is. It's about, what does the law say? What are the requirements, point for point, that they need to prove? And that's what the jury, and the jury has been seeming very interested. They're very involved, paying attention. So we'll see.
There's a lot to prove,
yeah,
but there's still a very long way to go. I mean, we have to remind everyone, and if you haven't been following this, you're only a week and a half in to when the actual opening statements to the first witnesses.
Exactly.
Called. So there's so much more. No one at this point could say this is a slam dunk case or it's not.
No, and also too, remember, all the witnesses that they're calling now, excuse me, the pollen. Yeah. All the witnesses that are calling now are witnesses that are being brought by the prosecution. So the prosecution is bringing these people in to try to prove their case. That's why the sex worker was such a surprise today, that he was seemed to be supporting them, but he was under oath. He had to say what was the truth. Yeah. So then remember, we're still going to hear. We haven't heard the defense case yet, which they kind of have hinted at, saying that it's going to be, domestic abuse, not sex trafficking, drug use, drug abuse, a lot of emotional issues due to the drug abuse and that type of thing. But we haven't heard their case. We don't know who they're going to call.
Yeah. Diddy, Cassie, and Regina Ventura's future plans. The consequences for Diddy might be catastrophic if these claims lead to additional inquiry. Allegations linked to extortion threats and the exploitation of personal information entail significant legal and financial ramifications. Particularly in a single case like this, can lead to more testimonies because people may feel more comfortable coming forward. The bigger question is how much harm his reputation will sustain. Diddy has spent decades building an empire on his name, but scandals like this can spoil even the most carefully guarded legacies. The industry has seen this happen before. There is a sense of ambiguity about how this will play out, but public opinion shifts, endorsements stall, business deals fall through, and the once unshakable influence starts to erode. Although Regina's testimony is damning, will it result in legal action? Could there be further witnesses, evidence, or claims that are frequently made in high-profile cases? If someone else discovers something, it has a cascading impact. If someone who might have been in Diddy's control chooses to come forward, it might increase the pressure and broaden the controversy. People seek clarification and want to know if this incident is unique or a symptom of a more widespread, long-standing problem. The public's desire for accountability has drastically changed, especially in the Me Too age, and Cassie has talked about empowerment and sharing a message of healing and growth in recent years. But this dark chapter of her life has resurfaced in a way that brings old wounds into the spotlight. The knowledge that her mother risked everything, her home, her financial security, and her life, to protect her from Diddy's alleged threats carries a heavy emotional burden. Cases against prominent figures are scrutinized like never before. What impact does this realization have on their relationship now? Does it strengthen their long-standing closeness, or does it highlight it more broadly? The industry's reaction might set a major precedent, and Cassie's silence on a large portion of this time could reveal just how much influence Diddy allegedly had over her life and career at the time. Will other professionals and artists denounce Diddy, or will they remain silent to prevent losing? It's a test of how far the music business has come in resolving its power imbalances for fans, and an opportunity to demand responsibility of the kind that makes people face painful facts about the structures that defend power above justice. Connections in an industry still dominated by gatekeepers, Regina's bravery in testifying most recently has already sparked discussions about the misuse of power in Hollywood. The next course of events may depend on whether more people are willing to support her claims. As this story spreads, one must wonder what other stories might be out there waiting to be told. Speaking out against someone like Diddy, a man whose influence extends far beyond music, requires a certain kind of bravery. Regina Ventura's testimony serves as a reminder of what's at stake when her narrative makes us think about the real cost of quiet and reveals the unseen sacrifices made to protect loved ones. As these accusations develop, one concern remains. How many more voices will go unheard because they are hidden by fear or manipulation? Bring a greater reckoning, since each tale like this makes the world a better place.